Hey man, so here we are, a bit of a special dude's views, still related to the Steel Vengeance issues. Again this week, the weekend of May 18th, 19th, and 20th, or well, I guess they're open daily, but as of this weekend, still running only one train on Steel Vengeance, so they still clearly have a problem, and now they don't even have the week with no park operations to try to fix the problem. So we're going to talk about that a little bit here, give a little bit of what I know from my work in chemical industry that still is also plays over to the amusement park industry as far as controls and risk analysis. So again, please subscribe down here if you want to see more of these. I'm going to try to start doing more of these. We'll see how that works. I'm getting decent views. So this one I think can help some folks out and start some discussion. So so the problem, nobody knows what the problem is with Steel Vengeance. Officially, the park hasn't said anything. It's running one train after it had the collision, which means clearly there's a blocking issue. Something happened, didn't stop the train. Could have been a mechanical issue that the brake physically couldn't stop the train. I really doubt that was the case, though. I'm pretty confident that it's a controls case. So something to do with the controls of the brakes themselves. So that's what we're going to sort of focus on here. So as you may or may not know, roller coasters are computer controlled. They're not really computers. They are special computers. They're called, we got real high-tech stuff here today, programmable logic controllers, or PLCs. PLCs are just really high-tech computers, although they're not really, they've been around for decades, but they're much more reliable computers. Any sort of control system is going to use a PLC instead of, Windows-based or, some sort of Apple-based controls, because those aren't ultra reliable. I mean, everybody watching this has had their computer just crap out on them and give you a blue screen of death or whatever it's called now. PLCs don't do that. At least they're not supposed to do that. Now, you can get into another level of computer controls called SIS, Safety Instrumented Systems. I can't imagine those are used in roller coasters this day and age. I mean, those are usually, even in a chemical plant, those are only used for the absolute worst case scenarios where, this pressure controller here fails, we kill, 5 people across the street, sort of thing. We can't get around, we can't control anywhere else. You put it in SIS as really a last line of defense. I really don't think anything like that exists on roller coasters. I'm sure it's just PLCs. But there are ways to make PLCs even more reliable. I mean, the PLC itself is only as reliable as the company that makes it states that it is, but you can make it work more reliably. So what a PLC is, basically it does ladder logic. And the program for a PLC looks very similar to this, where you have basically a ladder, and each one of these rungs is a different situation. So you go through and it may be, okay, well, is this brake showing empty? Well, if it's not, then you go down and do another check. If it is, okay, you go through and you go fine. Sometimes you go down one rung at a time. In a roller coaster, so many things are happening at a time. You've got a lot of roller coasters out there. Some things are going in order, but other things are out there, like the E-stop button. You hit the E-stop button, that goes to a completely different part of the PLC, shuts down, the lift hill motor, closes all the brakes, and that supersedes anything else that's going on. So, and all of those are different rungs. So the computer is constantly looking at each one of those rungs and seeing which ones are active and inactive and making changes based on that. So, what's happening, my guess, like I say, at Cedar Point, there's an issue with the brakes. There can be 3 things most likely wrong. Either, there's a wiring issue to the sensors for the brakes, because it's sensor related, probably not mechanical braking ability related. If it's sensors, you have the wiring to the sensors could somehow, come loose or whatever, and that could mess things up. that's an easy fix, and the PLC is going to spit out an error as soon as that happens. So can't imagine that's the issue. You know, it could be a more likely a programming error, which the program itself is bad, or a sensor error, whereas the sensor itself is bad. The sensor saying, okay, there's no roller coaster in the station, so bring on the next one. That's sort of what happened. And oh, hey, there was one in the station. Whoops! And it hit the train coming in, hit the other train. I doubt it's a sensor issue either, and that's what I'm going to get into now. More than likely, the sensors for the roller coaster is what it's called 2 out of 3 voting, or you'll see it in controls, it'd be 2003. What that means is, you know, each place there's a sensor, there's actually 3 sensors there. Now, I'm not sure exactly how a modern coaster is on the brakes, but each brake run has at least 2 sensors, might even have 3, one in the front, one in the middle, and one in the back. And all of those have to be showing, all 3 of those sensors have to say, yeah, there's no coaster here, for that brake to be considered clear and that block clear. Because I guess we can go back a little bit, you know, roller coasters have block systems. On Steel Vengeance, there are 3, 4, probably, I think there's 6 blocks. You got your station block, you got the section right out of the station where you can add trains to and from the track. That's a different block. There's the lift, there's the mid-course brakes, and then there's 2 brakes immediately before the station. Each one of those brakes should be able to bring the coaster to a complete stop, if need be. Now, in some operations, depending on how many trains you have running, you can set it up to where, like, it's definitely the 2 coming into the station, you can set it up to where the first one just slows it down a little bit, and the second one brings it to a stop. You know, so you can have different modes of operation. And since they have not ran 3 trains, they definitely could be running it that way, depending on how quickly they're running through. But, you know, you don't really want to stop the coaster at the mid-course. You know, the coaster is designed to return to the station after coming to a complete stop there, but, you know, it's not good for the riders. Definitely it makes them unhappy. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do it, but you know, if everything's running properly, you know, everything should flow right through there. So with the 2 out of 3 voting, what that basically means is, you know, so you have your roller coaster here in a brake, and you'll see, you know, you have 3 different sensors, which is a sort of a guess on my part. But each one of those sensors is really 3 different sensors. So you get down here at the bottom, and you have 3 sensors in a bank, all that are hardwired to the PLC separately, and that's an important thing. Each one of those sensors has to go back to the PLC on its own wire, and you know, you don't even want to, a lot of times you don't even want them to go through the same junction boxes or whatever, because when those fails, then all 3 of the sensors fail. So, you know, you have separation of all these things so that if one thing fails, it doesn't make the coaster have a crash. So with the 2 out of 3 voting, basically that means, you know, of those 3 sensors that are looking there, as long as 2 of them say there is a coaster there or there isn't a coaster there, you know, that's what makes the output of that sensor block. You know, so, you know, it's all Boolean, so, you know, it's true, false sort of thing. You know, everything is if then. So, you know, if the station brake block is empty, then allow another one to come in. So for that then to happen, you have to have true for the sensors to all show there's no train there. So 2 out of 3 voting means at least 2 of those say, for each bank of sensors, at least 2 of them are saying there's no train there. So then the computer says, okay, the station block is empty, so the station, or the block before the station, can release the coaster or let a coaster go through it to come into the station. That's the way the roller coaster works. So, you know, obviously that gets much more complex when you have 3 trains operating, going around. The computer is looking at all those things. If something does happen, if a coaster gets stuck on the first block going into the station, and something happens and it opens, but it doesn't roll into the next block, that's when you're going to trigger upstream, and the next train, if it hits the mid-course brake run, it's going to come to a complete stop there, because then if it's let go from the mid-course brake, the next place it's going to be able to be stopped is that first block before the station. Well, if the computer's saying, hey, there's still a coaster here, it's not going to let it go from there. And now some people know about the Smiler incident. You know, that was a situation where they were actually in what everybody called, you know, maintenance mode, which really means the PLC is sort of superseded by an operator instead of itself. So that was a case where, you know, they really screwed up on that one. But, you know, the computer would have no, because that was another thing, you know, that train had valleyed somewhere, so it sort of got lost between the blocks, and that gets to another layer of complication. You know, just because the block is empty, well, if the mid-course said there was a coaster and it's gone from there, but then the first block of brakes going into the station still hasn't said there's another train there, never said there was one there, then you can't let another train come through the mid-course, because the computer's going to say, wait a minute, one left the mid-course, but it didn't get to the end of the course. It's somewhere in between. Stop it at the mid-course. And so there's all these if-then statements, and when you design that, and you know, this is all basic, they've been doing this for decades, but that's the type of logic that goes on. So something is not working there with the Steel Vengeance PLC. This isn't groundbreaking. You know, Steel Vengeance itself, you know, it's the biggest RMC coaster in the world, sure, but it's, what, the third tallest, maybe fourth tallest coaster at Cedar Point. You know, it's nowhere close to a high-tech coaster. I mean, it's the same as Twisted Timbers that opened, is the same as all the other RMCs that have opened. Running 3 trains or 2 trains when the train crashed is absolutely not pushing any boundaries. So something's wrong with their logic there, and I'm sure Cedar Fair is not too happy with RMC right now, and RMC is probably not too happy with their controls engineering contractor. So I did have a sort of a drawing here to show the blocks, you know, while I was talking about that. But this sort of shows you how the blocks are, where you got the station block, and then you got this is just for Steel Vengeance, and you have the right outside the station block, then the lift hill is a block, and you have your other blocks outside on the course. So something's going on there. You know, the sensors themselves should be fine, and with 2 out of 3 voting, you know, one sensor can absolutely fail, and the coaster can still operate fine. Now, fine meaning it can be brought down to a safe state. Most likely the PLC, if it senses that one sensor has crapped out, it is probably going to shut down the roller coaster and get maintenance out there to fix the sensor, because if you're doing 2 out of 3 voting, but you know one of the 3 votes isn't paying attention, then it's 1 out of 2 voting, really, and that's bad. Or, you know, the other one is sending out wrong messages. So, you know, all these things have to go into. So, you know, it's an extremely complex control system to operate a roller coaster. We've gone really far from the days of, you know, an operator running from the front brake in the station to get back to the first brake in the station to move the big old wood levers to stop it. And, you know, there's some places that still operate that way, and it's awesome to watch. But, you know, trains can hit each other that way too. So, you know, Steel Vengeance is without a doubt designed to be as safe as it possibly can be. And some of these things here are how that happens, and that happens on all roller coasters out there. You know, and you can get into, you know, other layers of this, and getting into risk analysis, and, you know, which failures can be worse. You know, one could argue that like on Steel Vengeance, the brakes outside of between the station and the lift aren't anywhere near as important as the brakes in front of the station that stop the train that's hauling ass into the station. So, you know, you can maybe have 3 out of 4 voting on some of those or something, and, you know, that's all a risk analysis. Well, you know, what sort of bad thing can happen? How many layers of protection do we want to have for that? And that could be a whole other topic for me to talk about. So that's sort of the long-winded, hopefully not too long-winded way of the roller coaster operates and goes through its controls. I'm not a control engineer, I'm a chemical engineer, but I've I've been in plenty of sheds out in plants dealing with a control engineer going, well, isn't this working? It can be very, very frustrating. I'm sure RMC is not really sleeping that much right now, and something not weird. I mean, there's another layer with Steel Vengeance that, you know, once they get it fixed, then they still have to get it re-approved. Maybe that's where they are. You know, I don't know. Ohio may really be amping up their safety checks after the state fair incident. So it may be something that RMC has fixed it, and they're just waiting for Ohio to be convinced that they're safe enough to start back up. You know, you don't know where they are in the whole thing, but you know, they're getting more and more scrutiny. Of course, the state fair is a whole other ball or can of worms. So there we are. That's the dude's views on Steel Vengeance and just roller coaster control systems in general. So again, hit the subscribe button if you liked what you hear. I got a lot of POVs out there from parks, plus POVs of water slides that I've taken myself, POVs of a lot of dark rides that don't exist anymore, some heavy metal concert videos, a bunch of just random stuff. So thanks a lot. We got 1,000 subscribers. I'd like to have a whole lot more, and see you later.